Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about a topic that could change how US help other countries and how your tax dollars are used. Right now, there's a talk moving money from USAID, the main American agency that provides foreign aid, to another government group called DFC. So the change could mean less traditional aid and more investment run like a business. Today, we invited my friend Steve Hoffman to be our speaker to talk about this important issue. And Steve is a respectful entrepreneur, investor in the industry for many years and has been a thought leader in many important issues. So we're going to talk about who's pushing this and whether it's even legal. Steve, thank you.
Wonderful to be here, Diana.
Okay, so first of all, can you tell us who is Benjamin Black and why is he so important in this foreign aid debate?
Benjamin Black is actually a finance guy. He's a Wall Street guy. He's been a manager of several different financial institutions and companies. So most recently, he has been running a credit fund, an alternative credit fund, which is similar to a private equity firm. And he has been investing in companies with loaning them money, but promising financial returns that are like a hedge fund. And prior to that, he's been working with hedge funds and other firms in Wall Street. You know, Trump nominated him to head up the DFC, and he is a proponent of private investment. So, just for those of you who don't know, the DFC is the International Development Finance Corporation. And this institution is what Trump hopes replaces USAID. So, USAID has been around forever. It has been a pillar of American foreign policy. It is where we put money into helping countries develop. We put money into humanitarian efforts. We put money into what we call soft power for the US abroad, which not only helps a lot of countries that have impoverished populations, but it also builds the US's reputation.
So
Well,
why,
the
yeah, go ahead, please.
go ahead.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead,
why
ask.
some people want to move this foreign aid money from USAID to DFC? And what is the big deal behind this?
The big deal is that it's a completely different approach to our foreign policy. So Trump is America first. And when he says America first, he usually means American corporate interests first. And by appointing Benjamin Black, he's basically saying we want to take a Wall Street guy and put him in charge of how we distribute money overseas, especially soft money. Now, the DFC's approach will be very different from USAID. So USAID was focused on primarily on helping countries, developing countries, and our allies with aid. And a lot of times this meant humanitarian aid. You know, if there was a natural disaster like a drought, if there was war, if there was all sorts of things, people are suffering, you get money to them. And then also for projects in these countries that promote American interests. Sometimes they're for-profit projects, sometimes, a lot of the times, they're nonprofit projects with NGOs and other organizations. And they've done a lot of good work throughout the world. But Trump he views this as a waste of money. So anything humanitarian, he's just like, it's a waste of our money. And Benjamin Black is of the same opinion. So him and Lonsdale, they actually published a paper on how to doge USAID. So they are interested in literally taking that money away, especially from the nonprofit sector, humanitarian sector, and rerouting it into for-profit projects. So that's what they're doing. They want to
Wow.
fund development overseas that actually has a return on investment. So this may sound great. Like you may be saying, wow, you know, why don't we get money? Why don't we get profit? But
Exactly.
there,
Is this legal or who has the power to stop it or approve it?
So that's another question. So it's really ultimately Congress. So Trump can issue a directive, an executive order, which changes our policy. He can even put certain funding on hold for review, but it ultimately has to go through Congress. Although Trump, because he doesn't really want to deal with Congress and he thinks he should have ultimate authority, believes and is pushing hard for his vision of reshaping government to go through regardless of what Congress says and not to go through the normal channels of approval, which are required. So Congress, because of the separation of powers in the US Constitution, Congress holds the purse strings. The president doesn't hold the purse strings. So any funding ultimately has to go through Congress. And if it doesn't go through Congress, then it shouldn't be allowed. Trump, on the other hand, doesn't really want, especially if it takes time, especially if the vote might not go his way. He wants to circumvent Congress.
So Congress has the power. So what if Congress says no, and what's next? Or what if they say yes, and what would happen?
So we have to see. Congress right now is Republican controlled. So it's probably going to align with Trump. However, if in the midterm elections Congress changes, we could see a completely different scenario. Ultimately, Congress decides where the money goes. So Congress is in control of approving the budget for the DFC or USAID. And if you're going to transfer money between them, ultimately Congress has a say in whether that is legal or illegal. And in the end, if there's a conflict, the courts have to decide.
Okay, so I know that there are so many business and agencies working with US AID, and how would this affect them? And what would the companies gain more or lose funding, and what would happen?
So already, Trump has ordered a halt to USAID funding. So a lot of projects that were in the work, especially a lot of nonprofit groups, humanitarian groups, doling out, food assistance and, life-saving measures, medical care, all of those have been essentially frozen. And it's been a disaster if you're one of the people who is dependent upon the money and the food and the medical aid. It's been really, really tough. So it's been tough for the nonprofits, the NGOs. It's been harder on the actual people who were expecting and depending on this aid. The US is the richest country in the world. So if we cut off funding to these people, it's very hard to replace that source of funding. Not easy. And it's very hard to do, almost impossible to do overnight, which that funding wasn't, they weren't given a heads up. They weren't given a lot of time to prepare for this radical change. It just happened. So they're having to deal with it. And hasn't been a good situation for all the organizations that have been working with USAID. And ultimately, that comes back to affect our reputation. So the United States is supposed to be a leader in the world. We are
Yes.
supposed to be looking out for our allies, our partners overseas. When we make a commitment to them, especially funding for humanitarian, people expect us to honor that commitment. When we cut it off abruptly, it's not a good situation, and it reflects very badly on us. So our reputation as a country that is not only the most powerful and richest country in the world, but that is a country that is there to support our allies and our partners around the world, that reputation has been tarnished.
Yeah, exactly. US used to be set a good example for the whole world, but if our government do this, and this is going to be really a huge damage for our image. And how do you see that the future, the trend, if our federal government is still there?
The trend doesn't look good from my perspective, uh, because what we're doing is we're transferring money out of USAID, this organization that has been really a pillar of American policy and soft power, making us look good because we use our military and we use force, right? But we also need to balance that out with soft power. Now we're transferring money out of that organization. We're putting it into the DFC. So what is the DFC under Benjamin Black? What is their mission? Their mission is to actually invest in a for-profit enterprises, not nonprofit, not necessarily humanitarian, but for-profit. This means, if you're for-profit, there's a lot of things you can't do. You can't give out huge amounts of food aid if there's a natural disaster, an earthquake, a flood, drought, whatever it is. If there's wars, you can't just give away money. You have to make a return on investment. So who does this benefit? It definitely doesn't benefit the people on the ground in areas where they really need U.S. assistance quickly for these things, because we're dismantling all of that. It does benefit investors. So, Benjamin Black comes out of kind of the whole Wall Street world, hedge funds, private equity, and his buddies, his cronies, are going to benefit, because what we're doing is we're de-risking investments overseas, especially investments in natural resources like oil, like minerals, all these things. Yes, they could be profitable, but they're going to be profitable for the big investors. So you are using US government money to actually make it easier for these investors, these big corporations run by these very wealthy individuals. We're going to make it more profitable for them to do business overseas with our partners. Some of the countries may benefit from these investments. There's no doubt. If you make good investments and the US government helps subsidize them or de-risk them, that can benefit both the wealthy investors who are putting the money in and their corporations, as well as the countries. But it also leaves a gaping hole in our foreign policy where we actually are committed to helping people where there is no investment return. There's no ROI except the ROI showing that the US is a compassionate country, showing that the US will help out other countries when they are really in need, when they are suffering from devastation and other things. We are missing this. And to me, that reflects very badly on the US. And in the end, it could end up hurting us more than helping us.
Thank you so much, Steve. I think it's so obvious. Thank you for the observation and sharing your deep thoughts with us. Hope to see you
My
next time.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.